nobody likes Scalpers. They're the parasitic, dried up pieces of excrement on the arsehole hairs of gaming, ruining an already expensive hobby for us gamers. So knowing these scumbags have pilfered something you legitimately want to own for your love of gaming for the sole purpose of profit is beyond infuriating. But luckily, however, these dog turds wrapped in human flesh don't always have their own way. Every now and then, these people assume something is going to be more popular than it actually is. Or more so, receive mass competition from other scalpers, forcing them to sell below the original asking price they were banking on inflating, resulting in them losing hundreds, if not thousands. So this episode, we take a look at such events from these horrific hoarders, these cretinous collectors, and these scumbag stockpilers, all trying to make it rich off games that some developers only wish people thought they were good enough to scalp. But hello you, I'm Guru Larry, and I'll welcome you to Fact Hunt. 5 times scalpers totally screwed themselves over. With it being re-released so many times now, it's hard to emphasise how popular Halo 2 was at launch. Not only was it the highly anticipated follow-up to Halo Combat Evolved, but it was also the first Halo game to be actually playable on Xbox Live. None of that lugging your console to your mate's house or faffing around with Xbox Connect. Remember that? To celebrate the prospect of hurling racial abuse at 12-year-olds in another country, you could even buy a special edition Xbox Live Plantronics headset, which was really just a repurposed telemarketer's earpiece that looked like you stuck a spring onion over your ear hole. But aside from its mass anticipation, Halo 2 was surprisingly also the first ever video game to be released as a limited edition steelbook. Those wonderful metallic boxes with annoying irreparable dents and scratches, dare you even look at them the wrong way. So seeing the word limited is like shiny objects to a magpie for scalpers. They thought these limited editions were limited, grabbed them in droves and dogpiled eBay with ludicrous prices. Fortunately, their greed got the better of them, as Microsoft's definition of limited means limited until the world's supply of metal runs out. There were literally millions of steelbooks produced, to the point there's ironically more limited editions than there are regular editions out there. So easily available in stores, these scalpers' copies rotted on eBay, lucky to sell them at half price. And the final nail in the coffin to this story is, even after all these years later, Halo 2's limited edition is so valueless to collectors that the regular edition actually commands a higher price as there's less of them.
There are waiting lists and tickets just to stand in line and get a chance to buy PlayStation 2.
One of the first known instances of scalping in gaming came about during the launch of the PlayStation 2. After the original PlayStation had come out of nowhere, obliterating both Sega and Nintendo's dominance on the console market and literally destroying Atari entirely, news of Sony releasing a follow-up system had everyone and their mother clamouring to get one. Heck, even I myself remember rushing to Dixon's 6 months before launch and laying down a hefty £100 deposit in the vain hope that I may receive one at launch. And spoiler alert, yes I did. Such was the demand for the PlayStation 2 that some lowlifes were even defrauding people by selling just the box. Yes, the box of the console at prices at several times that of the machine. Yeah, there's people out there even scummier than scalpers. However, this time scalpers could have gotten away with it with their vulturous ways if it wasn't for one thing. The launch model of the PlayStation 2 was a janky piece of shit. Faults were cropping up left, right and centre on the console, from controller ports failing, drive doors refusing to open, to even the dreaded disk read error of death on the system. So stores were receiving thousands of returns. It got so hectic, there were even reports of Toys R Us stores opening up on Boxing Day solely for the mass returns of faulty PS2s sold as Christmas presents. People were literally queuing up out of the store to give them back. Why? You see, to meet demand, Sony were hiring any old factory to produce them at breakneck speed, and so quality control completely flew out of the window. For scalpers, this meant unhappy buyers returning them as well. Of course, some tried to weasel out of it, but thanks to eBay's return policy, they didn't have a leg to stand on. So for a lot of scalpers, having grabbed so many, face the daunting prospect of returning them back to stores, suffering turmoil such as which one came from which store, how they tiptoed around the store's one per customer policy, and these were just the scalpers smart enough to actually hold on to sales receipts. So countless scalpers were lumbered with broken PlayStation 2s, having lost both the price they paid for the original console, as well as their scummy markup. So quite the fitting punishment for their greed. Long before Capcom completely arsed up the franchise with its abysmal Xbox 360 Connect port, the original Steel Battalion was a highly sought after title within the hardcore gaming community. For those of you unaware of Steel Battalion, it's a first-person, super serious mech simulator, where you control a giant robot using a baffling array of buttons, dials, toggles and foot pedals laid out to you on video game's largest ever joystick. Oh, and you also only get one life in the game, so if your mech is blown up before punching that giant eject button, it's back to the start of the game for you, young fella me lad. So think Gundam meets Dark Souls. Yeah, I'm taking the talentless journos route here and comparing hard games to Dark Souls. Bite me. Anyhow, when news peaked that Capcom were going to issue a second batch with the multiplayer Line of Contact edition, everyone was rushing to pre-order these previously unobtainable massive sticks. And that inevitably included scalpers again. Pretty much every scalper even remotely interested in gaming jumped on the bandwagon and had bought at least one unit, instantly flooding the international flea market eBay with them. However, what scalpers didn't realise was the only reason the original was so hard to get hold of was because Capcom had only ever produced 10,000 copies globally of the original, and the only people after them were hardcore gamers who became aware of it long after it had sold out. Most casual gamers didn't see the appeal of forking out $200 on an arbitrary joystick that would only ever work on one single game. So once again, eBay stagnated with unsellable copies at vastly inflated prices. In fact, scalpers had bombarded eBay with so many Steel Battalion controllers that anyone who actually did want one was in for a bargain. They were heavily slashing prices to make any sort of return on their investment thanks to the mass competition from other scalpers, so it wasn't uncommon for buyers to pick up a brand new $200 controller for less than $80. And the greatest irony of all, however, is that Steel Battalion controllers are once again heavily sought after, with prices now reaching in excess of $500 for a fully boxed, green-buttoned original. So if these scalpers hadn't panic sold, they'd be sitting on a goldmine right about now. You gotta love karma. A Hannah Montana game that was scalped, Larry? Are you mildly serious? Why, absolutely, my friend. You see, every now and then, usually by pure chance, a game will come along that amazingly unlocks the ability to hack your console, allowing you to do all manner of naughty stuff, such as Splinter Cell on the original Xbox, Zelda the Twilight Princess for the Nintendo Wii, and Cubic Ninja for the 3DS. The second this is discovered, the prices for these games skyrocket on the second-hand market, So in 2011, when German gaming forums PSX Tools began to circulate that shovelware schlock Hannah Montana the movie game for the Wii was about to open up all manner of underhanded goodies thanks to an exploit, scalpers rushed to use game stores to grab the game for pennies, then stick them on eBay for ridiculous prices. The demand for copies of Hannah Montana reached such proportions, even fagins like CEX, GameStop and Amazon started to vastly balloon their prices to grab a slice of this hacking action. Some copies even going in excess of $175 at its highest point. But here comes the irony. In a feverish rush to scalp as many copies as possible, no one actually bothered to check whether the rumour was true or not. And well, no it wasn't. It was all a complete hoax. Some epic troll had managed to convince the console modding community, scalpers, and several major video game retailers that a game aimed at little girls found in bargain bins for $1 at most was now worth an absolute fortune due to its exploiting abilities. Which it didn't have. Hannah Montana once again went back to a game that nobody could care less about, and scalpers were lumbered with games no one wanted to buy. So I bet a lot of their relatives had disappointing Christmas presents that year. Yeah, I know this is super recent, but for those of you out there who think it shouldn't be on here, come back to this episode in a few years, when this is a historic piece, and you'll be laughing because you're tripping over the bloody things in used game stores. Now, one of Nintendo's biggest criticisms of new products is their constant limiting of stock to increase demand. While this has been reported with more recent releases, such as the Nintendo Switch, and God forbid, remember trying to find that Wii Fit Trainer amiibo? Haha! You had more chance of Jimmy Hoffa appearing in the next Smash Brothers than you did of finding one. This is nothing new in Nintendo, with the first reported instance being the launch of Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES in the United States, with Nintendo themselves stepping in to say that it wasn't the case in interviews. So calling this a coincidence constantly over the decades is a little naive, to say the least.
In the US, it's mostly Mario that they want.
The last Super Mario Bros. 2 was just sold.
Well, they get upset. Well, they say, oh, can you take my name? Can you take my credit card, please? Can you do something? My kid wants it. His friend has it, and they're not friends anymore because he doesn't have it.
All this makes me wonder, is the shortage real, or are they holding back supplies to increase the mystique?
But recent news and gaming press has only exasperated the issue, with pre-orders now leading to panic buying. And of course, scalping. But the release of the NES Classic Mini in 2016 was where desperation really set in. It wasn't uncommon to see listings of $350 or more for units online, some even reaching over $1,000. So when the Super Nintendo Classic Mini was announced a year later, people suspected the same thing would happen again. Which it did. Pre-orders soon sold out within seconds. And listings were going up on eBay for minis at vastly inflated prices that scalpers didn't even own yet. Which eBay did actually take down, as it couldn't be shipped within 3 months. However, it seems Nintendo finally came to the rescue of gamers by not only promising regular stock of both the SNES and the NES Mini, but also some epic trolling on scalpers by conveniently announcing this news just days before release. So they had an extremely limited time frame to sell them before the value plummets. Not to mention, once again, mass competition from other scalpers. So it means once again, their greed got the better of them. Well played, Nintendo! Hello you! Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified, and be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and I'll be seeing you next time. Ta-ra for now!